More than happy to have you here, taking us along the road to nerves and nervousness and how to overcome that itchy, bitchy stuff.
That thing that we do not talk about, do we?
Go ahead, Susan. Thank you for being here. I went
to the loo just now. So who feels nervous before they speak? Now, put your hand up. Yes, absolutely. What sort of things do you feel when you are nervous? Type them in the chat. It's probably easiest to do things like that. Do you get shaky, or you need to go to the loo, or you get sweaty palms and sweaty armpits and things like that, butterflies in your tummy? Oh yes, pain in the stomach. Yes, that's one that often people have. Let me have a look to see these things. We're all friends here, but pain in stomach, increased heart rate, yes. Brain fog. Yeah, I don't think it's just nerves for brain fog, actually, it's age. Dry throat, restless, keep pacing around, replace all the things nicely prepared. Yeah, absolutely. These are all perfectly normal. And I think it's really, really interesting, Katya, that you said that I looked as cool as a cucumber. When you heard me speak. I cannot tell you how nervous I was, and I was not able to get into my safe psychological zone for that entire talk. So, you know, if you, that you're probably thinking, really, but that was the reality for me. And people often say, well, it's okay for you, you look calm, you used to sing in front of audiences of 3,000 people as an old diva soprano. But let me tell you that I was very, very nervous schoolgirl. I was one of those that people would laugh at because I've got mild dyslexia and would pronounce things incorrectly when reading. I was a kid who paid somebody else to do leading the prayers when I was the prefect at school. I didn't say anything in my first interview for W.H. Smith. And even at university, although I was in a tutorial of 3 other students, I would be terrified when I had to present my paper to the tutorial group. I would shake, I would have all of those things there. And yet I've gone on to do what I do. And Katya, I'm so grateful for you saying that I looked as cool as a cucumber, because believe me, I didn't. But going to music college later on, not only did I realize that everybody got nervous, that it was completely normal, but I was given tools and techniques in order to be able to find what I call your performance zone, so you feel safe and you can perform to the best of your ability, even if that's going. So what I'm going to do is to share with you some things that I believe will help you. It will involve you standing up at some point. It will involve you possibly giggling. And that's absolutely fine. Some things will resonate with you, and some things might not just ring your bell, but there'll be something that I believe will help you. So before we start, I think it's really useful for us to understand why we get nervous. And the reason is this: for whatever reason, we perceive our audience as being the enemy or danger. Does that resonate with anybody? Has anybody had one of those situations where they've had, well, I shared with you yesterday, Jackie, about somebody that introduced me when I was speaking as, it's the ugly Susan. And yeah, I know, can you imagine? But has anybody had any things when you feel, oh my goodness, the audience is going to hate me, or I'm really worried about a question that people are going to ask? Anybody want to share anything, or is mine horrifying enough? No, everybody's gone quiet. Well, for whatever
the beginning, what you said, the questions, the questions are the easiest part, because that shows me personally, because that shows me, okay, they've been with me, and the more resistant they are, the better for me. So I like that. because then there is action. But the thing is that before, in the beginning, I say, okay, I'm not a majority type, so I never would win any election because I'm rough at the edges, and consciously so. So I always think like, they probably will not love me, right? And that is the best I can do. So
yeah, and that's fantastic. And we'll talk about reframing how you approach it. But for most of us, for whatever reason, we perceive our audience as being the enemy, and or that there is some impeding danger. And when we have that danger and that fear kicks into our bodies. From a neuroscientific point of view, I am sure that our resident doctor will be able to say more about this and go into more detail. But basically, we have a part in our brain called the amygdala. I consider this to be like a smoke detector in the background, just beeping away, trying to work out what is danger. And also our senses are perceiving that something might be dangerous. We might see that the entire audience is bored or throwing things at us or getting angry with us. And that will kick in adrenaline and, in the worst possible cases, cortisol, to cause our heart to beat faster, our breathing to be much more shallow, so that we are ready to either fight it or to run away. And what we need to do is to create what I call a safe psychological zone, because when we're in that situation, we're in quite a vulnerable emotional state. I think you would agree with that, wouldn't you? And that's the last thing that we need if we're going to go on stage. And there are a couple of tricks that I will share with you with that. So first of all, I want to share with you a story about a big diva that I looked after when I was a music student. She was called Jessie Norman, and she died last year. Does anybody know Jessie Norman? Anybody heard of her? I know, absolutely. And I was, you know, a young student and had this dream job looking after all the divas backstage. Have no idea how I got it, but Montserrat Caballé was another one that I looked after. I know, and I didn't even ask for autographs. I was that polite.
But she died too. What did you do?
I know. And Nikolai Keta, they've all. I think Jose Carreras is the only one still living. But anyway, I was called in about a month before and asked to sign an 18-page contract from Miss Norman. I wasn't to look her in the eye. I wasn't to talk to her. I wasn't to turn my back on her. I was to, and all of these things. Okay, signed it. And everybody was laughing at me because they thought it was so ridiculous. However, on the day, she turned up early, didn't talk to her, showed her room, all of those things. Warmed up, took her down for the first half. 45 minutes she sang with a full symphony orchestra, no microphone. Can you think, that's almost like physically doing a, I suppose, like a marathon. Came back up, 15 minutes, she was down for the second half, another 45 minutes, warbling over that sound, then encores. She came up, she changed into another diva outfit, went to the foyer, and she sat for 2.5 hours with all of her audience who wanted to be signed. At that point, I realized why she had her 18-page contract. It wasn't because she was being stroppy, it was because she knew she needed certain things in place in order to perform to the very best of her ability, physically and mentally. Next week, with respect, it was likely she was going to be in the Midwest in a small concert hall where everyone would feel they could just walk in on her as she was warming up, and she needed to get into the zone. So I believe that in order to create a self-psychological zone, we need to have our own diva or diva, if you're a gentleman, contract of things that you need in place or you need to ask the people that are organising the event things that you need. So what sort of things do you think that you might need other than fluffy kittens and champagne on ice? Any things that you think you definitely need to ask for? Because if you don't ask, they might not understand that you need them. So any ideas? Could it be some water? Could it be that nobody comes and talks to you before you go on stage because you're a diva? Could it be that you have a technical test? Any ideas? Because everybody's gone very quiet. Can you still hear me?
I would say online there are differences to on stage.
Absolutely. And for the last 6 months, I've probably delivered 80 virtual workshops, most of them paid. So yeah, I've got my list of things that I will suggest would be helpful.
Private room to prepare.
Yes.
Yeah.
Private room to prepare. So, you know, it might be that you can go in early if it's a virtual thing. For big workshops and big virtual masterclasses, certainly I have asked if we can have a run through. So particularly if it's technology I haven't used, so if it isn't Zoom. So I came on early and we checked the lighting, for example. That was useful for me, so that I could do that, and the sound. Any other tip, any other things that you think?
Me personally, I'd love to be there early and see that everything works, and then have the opportunity to call it go away or do something else. What I do not like is checking and then beginning.
Oh, I hate that. I really do, because you still need to get
and then going and having a coffee or a chat or do whatever, and then I'm not very diva, and then come back. But I love to have this knowledge of, okay, everything is set up.
Yes, and maybe you can put that in your own diva Valkyrie, because we're both Valkyries. A diva contract, that there is a set time that you set up, or a set time that if you're in a virtual conference, that you have the opportunity to check everything, and then you can go away and finish your preparing.
Yeah.
Does that make sense to everybody? Has anybody else got anything that they want to add? Because it can be very easy to think, oh, I can't ask for that. They're going to think I'm a diva. They're going to think that I'm a prima donna. But actually, if you think that it's all about the audience, you're wanting to make sure that you provide the best possible speech or virtual workshop for your audience, then really it is absolutely fine to ask for those things. Jackie, you've gone very quiet. You agree with me? Find you're in a diva. That's what I say.
I love the stories about brown M&Ms that one of the rock bands insisted on, and then they knew if the people paid attention to detail, because if they hadn't read the contract, was that the right story? Do you know the one?
Yes. I mean, it varies the colour, and you've absolutely got it right, because when you put your rider in there, or your diva contract, if people haven't noticed it, then you're in trouble. So if, for example, Katya, you had asked that you had a tech check about an hour beforehand, so that then you can go away, and they hadn't read it, which does happen, then it would, if you'd flagged up something, you would know that there was going to be a problem. So for my music company, even it's quiet at the moment, but I will always embed in the musicians, because the musicians are a different breed, embed something in there. So it might be that I expect them to wear a blonde wig when they're playing piano, and you know, or they need to make sure they have clean shoes. And those that are on the ball, they will send a link to a photo of a pair of shoes or a wig or something like that, and it's a running thing. But I know then that they have really read the details. It might be worthwhile putting something like that in there.
So it's about this setting up your own, defining your diva space in a way that makes you feel comfortable because life is happening anyway on stage.
Absolutely. You've got your, what I call your safe psychological zone, what you can control. So you know that you've already checked the microphone, you know if you've got props, that you've got the props there. If it's virtual, you know that you've had an opportunity to go through with the IT people on their system, so that you know what's going to work, and you've built up a rapport with the IT person, which is even better. And it just gives you that space to feel relaxed within that. All right. So I've got a couple of the other things related to that, and I will do a warm up a little bit later. But there's one other thing, and I call this diva feet, or for gentlemen, it's Devo feet. And I'm going to move my this here, so hopefully you can. Oh, can you see my feet here? Can you actually see them?
Yes.
There is a way that I stand and I anchor this, and I call this diva feet, or for gentlemen, Devo feet. And those people that would like to try, if you want to stand up, I'm sorry that I can't do it any better where you can see my face. And I put my feet a hip width apart, and all of us have a tendency to either lean back, I do, I'm terribly introverted, but or to lean forward onto the balls of our feet. And that can cause challenges in themselves. But what I want you to do is to try and distribute the weight evenly between the balls of each of your feet, so the front of the feet and your heels. So you might want to go forward and backwards. Also, there's something that I call ski bunny, and I sort of bounce on my knees so that I really feel as though my feet are grounded and attached to the floor. So I've got the weight on my feet, and then I slowly straighten my knees, but I keep them soft. And you'll find that the weight drops off your shoulders onto your feet. Does anybody else find, do you see the difference? Do you feel how much more relaxed you are? That actually you feel grounded and you feel solid. For that moment when you walk on stage, or you start your virtual workshop, and this is a sort of anchor. And if at any stage through that process you get nervous, we all do, or there might be something that you get a little bit anxious, you're going to forget, just think feet and adjust that weight so that you get the weight evenly distributed between the balls of your feet at the front and the heels. So that's a little anchoring technique. And again, that can get you back into your safe psychological zone. Now, I know some of you are going to ask about if you sit down. I do exactly the same sitting down. I have my feet firmly on the ground in front of me, and then I sit into the chair with what I call my sitting bones. They're not, you know, I've got A-level biology, they're definitely not called sitting bones, but I feel that again I'm grounded. And that those times when you feel a bit anxious, you can think feet, and you're going to drop that tension onto your feet and feel a little bit more calm, and you can recognize that this is a safe place for you to be in. How did that make you feel, anybody? Did you find that of value? Yeah, did you? It's a really good little tool. So think Devo feet. All right. So
can I ask a question for this?
Go on.
So you do that. In the beginning, I'm absolutely with you. It's easier, right? Because in the beginning, you're still in control. So now once the show is running, either live or virtually, the show is running and you're with your audience, you're with whatever, hopefully with your audience. And you realize you need to get out of this nervousness.
I would almost, I'm going to show you, I would almost do a sort of diva thing, and then, you know, just a moment, just adjusting my feet. I did that once or twice with the Theresa May talk, because I just couldn't calm myself down. And I was diva feeting all the way through, and it didn't work.
So how do you set, what is the mental trick to, again, in the beginning, all fine, but once the show is running, to come to that moment that you can diva fade?
Okay, so you know there are times in any talk that you might want to change the mood slightly, or because you yourself are getting a little bit, you know, and that would be a moment to take a deep breath and diva feet, and it would just change the pace of the talk. See how you can do it.
So whenever you switch anyway from A to B, whatever A is and whatever B is, between these two, that's a good moment to say, hey,
that would be a brilliant thing. And it's just rechecking, rechecking so that you're anchored, so you're still in that safe psychological zone. Excellent. Oh yeah, Jackie.
I remember seeing a speaker at PSA London years ago who was a very confident millionaire businessman, and he did a showcase and shocked himself by completely drying. He totally forgot what he was going to say and he couldn't get it back. And we could all see him go into a complete state of panic. And he was so embarrassed because he didn't complete the talk and he scuttled away, never to be seen again. And the last thing he would have thought in that moment was, I must recenter myself, balance on my feet and start again, because his amygdala was releasing so many stress chemicals.
and yet, if you know how the amygdala works, we can start tricking it into realizing that actually everything's okay. So one of those could be the anchoring. I'll do a breathing exercise later on and explain what's going on. And these things, if you're aware of these little tools, even if you're in this mad panic, you can at least try them. And he'd probably never experienced that, or had to have those techniques in place, which poor people like me, having had to scrape up and manage my nerves, I've had to learn those things, which is why I'm so pleased to share them with other people now. Okay, so we've got a few things here. Another thing is, guess what? If you know what you're going to say, particularly that first line, and I know, Jackie, that you talked about that scary statistic, or that statement, or that question that hooks in the audience. If you know that first sentence, it's going to make a real difference. But I'm sure we've all watched some speakers that, for whatever reason, whether they were so nervous or maybe a little bit cocky, they hadn't thought about that first sentence to sort of launch you, and practice it. And that can make a massive difference. Because how often do we ask people when they say, oh, I'm scared, I'm going to be doing a presentation. And you say, what are you going to talk about? I don't know. I've got the slides ready, but I don't know what I'm going to say. And actually, what you're going to say is either going to make you feel anxious if you don't know, or if you do know and you're confident, it's going to make a real positive difference, which moves me swiftly on to the idea of practice. I do not know if any of you have seen a documentary called Free Solo.
Oh my, yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh, I know. Behind the cushion moment.
Yeah.
And what I would say is at the end is that I've got my own free app, and there are a lot of additional resources, including information on that particular this particular film. This chap called Alex Honnold has an amygdala that doesn't appear to be stimulated by much, let's say. So one of his things was to climb that big, massive lump of granite in the USA called El Capitan. But the difference was it was not with any ropes. He was a free solo climber. And it's absolutely fascinating if you want to understand about fear, because not only does he go to an MRI scan and they scan to see if his amygdala actually functions at all. And he's shown all of these scary images, and he sort of comes out at the end, so is that it? Because, and the doctor actually says he has an amygdala that needs stimulating with far more scary things. But he said a couple of things that I believe are really useful for us for speakers and managing fear. One is, he said that he does feel fear. I don't think it's like ours. He does feel fear, and the way that he pushes it away is to practice, practice, practice. So he's so confident in what he's going to do that he pushes it, he throws it, pushes it away. And in the documentary, he actually practices with a rope certain moves and carries on until he's absolutely confident. The second thing is that he made a comment when one of his colleagues actually fell off another rock and died during the documentary. And he said the problem can be that when it's less scary, you relax too much, and that's when you make your mistakes. And that to me was gold dust. Always listen to your fear and use that as a gift. Not if you're like this, but if it's in the background, because you know that you need to practice and prepare so that you can push it away. All right. So I've got one more about this before we do a warm up, and that is reframing fear. And Katya, you mentioned a little bit about this. Do you know there are certain situations where something can be scary and it all can also be exciting? Can you think of something that's like that? Perhaps you like the roller coaster, or you like jumping out of aeroplanes. Do type into the chat if there's something that you particularly, first date, yeah, absolute, scuba diving. Anything else scary? No, nobody else prepared? Walking in the dark alone, absolutely. Stalking lions, that's a new one. Well, with some of these, climbing rocks, yeah, hopefully you use ropes as well, not like Alex Honnold. With most of these, there is a scary element, but actually you can frame it as being exciting. So for the gentleman who said first date, yeah, it is scary, you're nervous, but actually it's exciting because you're going to meet somebody new. Yeah, I think you would agree with that. If you are stalking lions, could be scary, they could jump on you or and eat you, or alternatively, it might be that they become friends with you. And how exciting is that? Unlikely, but exciting anyway. If we look at speaking or doing a virtual workshop or a virtual masterclass, it can be really scary beforehand because you don't know how people are going to react, all of those things. Have I prepared enough? Is my tech going to work? All of those things. But actually, it can also be really, really exciting. So when you are getting nervous about something and you're preparing, not just the few minutes before, you know, one of those A4 pieces of paper that Jackie loves, split it in half and put scary, exciting. And you can list all of those things about that. And you will see that there are more positives than negatives in all of those. And you're reframing, instead of it being, this is really scary, it could be, do you know what? I'm really, really looking forward to working with all of these people. I'm really looking forward to sharing this with other people. I'm really looking forward to seeing how they react. All of those things. And all of a sudden it becomes positive. Okay, so that's another really good thing, which moves me on to the audience. We've got a little ego, haven't we? Who has that little voice that moves around with them? Mine's always on the left because I'm left-handed, and it's, oh, you're going to make a mistake here. You know, you look silly on screen, don't you? You always shake, your voice is quite high pitched because you're a soprano, all of those negative things. Well, that's your ego speaking, isn't it? But if we turn that round and think about serving our audience, I've got some really, really good things to share with you, the audience, the purpose of me speaking isn't so that I get my little voice going there, but actually to really serve them, to provoke thought for them, to inspire, all of those things. Again, we're reframing it so it becomes more positive. All right? Has anybody else tried those sorts of techniques before? I'd be really interested to hear. Or is it just me?
But you can type into the chat or unmute your
Yeah,
microphone.
please do, because it's lovely to hear what other people's experiences are, because you know we're all in this together, and we've all had experiences, positive ones, I hope. Anybody? Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
Paul and then Jan.
Yeah, I feel it in that way when I make my promotion videos. And then I look back and then I think, okay, something with my hair, and okay, that's not good. But then I think it's ready. I will go for it. But that moment when I look back to the video and think, yes, that. It's 80% good.
You know, Troy, you've said something really, really interesting, because I feel that we are very, very critical straight after we come off stage or straight after we've done a recording. And that's the time when our adrenaline drops, and we're in a very vulnerable state, aren't we? The number of times that I came off stage, I tell a story of when I was at music college, and my singing teacher was that she was quite difficult with every young soprano, and she literally ran round just as I came off stage waving a piece of paper. She said, I've got 26 errors that you made, just as I came off stage. And that's pretty tough. And so just when you've recorded, just go and get a cup of coffee, or just relax first, and then you will be less self-critical.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you're just beating yourself up. Oh,
We have Paul, and then we have Jan who had to comment on this.
Okay, brilliant.
Paul first.
Okay, yeah, I had the same experience, Susan, like you were talking, that you go on stage and before you, I had it in March, my last live experience, being in Australia at the PSA convention over there. Great speaker just before me, and you think, oh my goodness, I can't stop. And I went on, just did my stuff. I saw my great friend Lindsay Adams in the back make jokes, and they said, you were amazing, but first you think, I will fail. And because you're the president, everybody watch you, and that's your biggest fear.
Oh, well, I will do a little warm up with you a bit later, and we try and push that little voice away. I know there was somebody else.
Jan says something that Exene says, okay, writing it down helps him to separate from it, and then coming to that back later. So Jan, and then to the warm up, because we have 10 minutes left.
Oh my gosh.
No.
Yes, and I've still got to do some vocal stuff.
No,
So
let Jan say first what
no,
he
it's
wants.
okay. Just you can skip it.
okay, so come on, everybody, stand up. So this is a warm up that I did. I'm not going to do any singing warming up. You'll be pleased to hear, but this is a little routine that I go through. And it warms up different parts of the body. It gets rid of tension in different parts of the body. There were a couple of speakers in Paris last year that asked me to go into the side room to do it with them, interestingly enough, because they just needed that. And when you do this, I want you to think of breathing in and really thinking about your breath, pushing away any negative thoughts, and only thinking about the first line that you're going to do. So first of all, you're going to go onto tiptoe and down. Now, a little tip, if you clench your buttocks, you will not wriggle. All right, so what you're trying to do is thinking about being slightly taller, all right? And then the next thing is hula hoops. So you're getting rid of that tension in your lower back. for a number of us, particularly if we've been driving or sitting down, we can get a little bit tense here. All right. So next, we're going to do a couple with the shoulders. So we're going to clench up and down, and up and down. Just drop, just relax. Remember, you're already standing in Diva or Devo feet, so you're really relaxed. Now, here are a couple for the neck. If anything hurts, you stop immediately, all right? So the first one, you put your chin down and very slowly look over one side. And the other side. We would do this for a little bit longer normally. Now, the next one is the sideways 8 with your nose. And again, if anything hurts or you feel you're pressurizing, please stop. So you just go around like this. And you're just thinking about your breath. And the other way. And then a couple for the jaw. I don't know about you, but I get quite a tense jaw. So again, if anything hurts, do not force the movement. So yeah, there are various ones that we can do. Kat is doing a very good one. Isn't that good? And then imagine that you've got some chewing gum. Yeah. Probably best not to do on screen in front of everyone else.
Well, recording.
Oh no. There you go. We're all friends together. And then, and I'm doing this very quickly, what I call gargoyles. So we go and right, yeah, and relax. And the last one of this is to, with your fingertips, you imagine that you've got lots of energy and stretch, stretch, really stretch. Okay. Now, the next thing that I think will be of real value to you, thank you, is to think about breathing. Now, if you can, breathe from your tummy, your abdomen. I won't be able to show you abdominal breathing in this time because we don't have time, but if anyone wants to contact me and I do a little 15-minute with you, this is a really good way to relax. So you will see that my shoulders never move. So I breathe in for 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I hold it for 6. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And I breathe out for 7. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I repeat that 5 times, and I'm literally thinking about my breath. I'm not thinking, I push away that little voice, and I'm literally thinking about breathing in for 5, holding for 6, breathing out for 7. Now, what that's doing is actually the vagus nerve, which is the main nerve that goes up the spine, is tricking your amygdala into thinking that everything's okay. So it is tricking your brain into telling the heart to beat slower, that you can take calmer breaths. And this is really, really important. But the fact that I said that you should focus on your breath, not on that little voice that's going on or thinking about the speaker before, is that it's giving you space to get into your own safe zone. All right. So any questions about that? Because I've got some things here, if in case we've got a problem with the voice. We could go on. So I was asked to come up with some really, really good tips in case you have a sore throat. Now, I would say that your voice is just like well, it isn't a muscle. This area here is about 1 centimetre long. It's actually grizzles. So it's the muscles around that are causing. So the breath is the muscles down here, and the breath going through the larynx. However, your larynx, if you misuse it by overusing it, it's just like a knee that you are running on when you have a sore knee, for example. So we just need to take care. So a few things that I would say from my first aid box. Water is an amazing thing. Do you know it takes up to 2 hours to absorb water that we drink? So if I drink some water now, only after 15 minutes will I start to absorb that water in my body, and it will be up to 2 hours before I get the full benefits. Now, if you're going on stage, or if you're here, I've got lights on here, it's easy to get dehydrated. When you're running around and, you know, just the thing of the energy, you are going to lose water through sweat and your breath. So it's worthwhile being really hydrated before you start, and plan it 2 hours ahead. But remember that you might need to go to the loo. Another thing is salt. Why do I need salt? Well, salt is brilliant for gargling. Do you all understand what gargling is? Does any
Gorgelen.
Oh,
Gorgelen.
yeah. So if you make a solution of a saline solution with salt and you gargle, it means that particularly your pharynx, the larynx is slightly further down, it's cleansing it. So if you feel a sore throat coming on, or you've been in a situation where possibly there might be germs, obviously this doesn't work with COVID, but it will mean to say that that you are cleansed. And if you've got a sore throat, this might be able to fight that off. I would say saline solution is really useful. Now this is not a prescription, it is literally saline water, and you can squirt this up your nostrils, which I won't do now, and that is cleansing your nasal passages. So again, if you've got a potential cold or something like that, it's cleansing these areas. Also, if you have hay fever, which I have, rhinitis, it can help manage that.
Is there one word concentration for the saline, as Exine is asking, or doesn't that matter?
It doesn't matter. I would recommend that you go to your pharmacist. It is not a prescription, but if you were to ask your pharmacist, they would be able to have some at the behind the desk, because quite often they use this for very young children, you know, babies, to manage that. So it's, you know, it's a very clean thing. Another thing, and this I don't know if you have this. This is eucalyptus oil. And when you have eucalyptus oil, either you could have a bowl and put a little bit in. Don't put too much because you stink the entire house out. And if you feel really blocked up, you put a towel over hot water with a bit of saline solution in, breathe in through your nose and breathe it out through your mouth, and it can really get rid of some of that congestion. Also at night, put it on your chest and behind your ears and things like that. Another thing, I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say this, is aspirin. Am I allowed to say that one? Yeah. Okay, because I'm very aware that we mustn't.
This is a country where soft drugs are free, so don't you worry.
Okay, so aspirin, this is something that this is something that I have used in the past. If you crush it up and gargle with that, it can help if you've got a really, really sore tonsils. And what else have we got here? Do you know what? Sleep and rest is really important. And I've got some, you know, some nighttime herbal remedies. Having a good night's sleep, particularly, now I know that we're not traveling around now, but even if you've got back-to-back virtual workshops or masterclasses, they are very draining. And if you haven't got enough sleep and you haven't rested, it is going to impact physically. And finally, who's come across these? I'm sure that there is there is a version of that. Yep, there we go. And certainly there is a German version of that my friends at the English National Opera, they go and get somebody to go and get them because you can't get them in the UK. Basically, they're a thick.
I write it down here. Jello Revoice. Voice, and we really live by that. Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, brilliant. So you've got an equivalent in the Netherlands. Brilliant.
No,
and it's
something that's the German one. That's the German one.
Oh, the German one is what all my diva friends at the ENO have.
That's the German one.
Yeah. And basically what it does, it's pretty horrible to take, but it cleans out everything for, at least for a few minutes. So if you're bunged up with a lot of mucus, then that can really solve that. Getting to mucus, I can't believe that I'm talking to mucus to some lovely speakers from Netherlands. There are a couple of reasons why that can happen. Could be that you're dehydrated. Your body creates this to protect things like your nasal passage and your larynx. So check that you're not dehydrated. It might be that you've got reflux, and that some people have that, and it can cause coughs, and that of course is jarring this area. Again, watch that. But you could also have a viral infection or a bacterial infection. Okay. So we're coming to a close. I'm sure that there are a number of questions. There's loads more that I could carry on, but I know that there's only limited amount of time. Are there any questions? And please, if anybody feels that they want to have a chat about breathing or anything with me, honestly, it's absolutely okay to book a call. No questions at all. Oh, what was the Theresa May talk? Oh, that was last year in Paris, and typically, can't believe it, the day before I did it, she resigned. But it was all about her voice and the fact that, you know, I used her as an example of bad practice of performance and presence and body language and how it impacted on her messaging. I was really cross that she resigned the day before, because her passing line, and it was all for the country, was such a brilliant line. Damn.
Oh, yeah, too bad. Susan, it was as always a pleasure. And the good thing about that practice, that's again what Jackie said as well. You need to practice that. You need to do it. It's every time you get the opportunity to I don't know, to gurgle, to do diva feed, even if it's not on stage. Do diva feed in, I don't know, the grocery store or something like this. I think this is the small things that help us improve. It's not the big thing. No. It is exactly the tiny little survival kit you have that you might not need every time everything, but just in case you have it. And that, I think, is what makes us, or helps us, improving in our serenity zone, in our comfort, in our whatever we need to perform exceptionally as speakers. Is there any things that need to be said right now? If not, please put into the chat to everyone visible, what was your nugget? What was the one where you said, oh yeah, I forgot it, or I never did that, and that's the cool one. No, the president says no. That is always is a bad sign when president says no. Okay.
No, that's not what I say. I had a question.
Oh, go on.
You mentioned before that you had a lot of paid assignments.
Sorry,
as an online speaker?
Yes.
Did you do anything special to do that? Did you have to change the way you do your business or approach your clients?
Absolutely. At the beginning of March, I saw everything disappear. as I'm sure other people did. Everything sort of ping, including one big program I was going to be doing with a pharma company, and I emailed them, and she said, "We will not need you. If we need you ever, I will contact you." And I thought, oh no. But I think they were in lockdown by then. So, you know, you have to forgive people, although it was a bit harsh. But yeah, I hung on to one masterclass, which was a few miles from here. And the company had already paid for their hotel and everything. And in 2 days, I completely changed it to be a virtual one. And then what I did was I really listened to what my clients wanted, what really they were struggling with, and literally worked for a week creating 3 or 4 programs that would be of value and support for them. And it went from there.
Okay, so listening to your clients that went away.
Yeah, listen to your clients, listen to what's going on around. So, you know, things are slightly different in the United Kingdom than for you in the Netherlands. That there is a strong possibility that most of the country will go into lockdown again, which is terrible. And although, on the other hand, the government is saying people should go into work, people are worried and organizations are worried. And then there's a massive challenge about how do virtual teams work? How do people lead those? And so it's those sorts of things that I've been working with people on since then.
Different kind of
not just in UK.
Yeah, different kind of confidence. Susan, thanks again. It's always a pleasure.
Oh.
Yeah, it's always good to, again, tiny things make a big difference.
Yeah.
It's, for me, one of the, you know, of the key takeaways, that we underestimate these tiny things. We always think we have to reinvent the world. We should not. We sometimes should gurgle. And, well, yeah, and the world is a better place. Thank you for that. We immediately